Estimados amigos y miembros de la comunidad latinoamericana, muy bienvenidos a su programa comunitario. Nosotros estamos aquí con Jaime Urbina, que es uno de los coordinadores de la huelga de Waterford Care Homes. Muy bienvenido al programa, Jaime.
Gracias, Rodrigo. Gracias.
Jaime, para nuestros televidentes que nos están viendo en este momento, que no están muy seguros qué está pasando aquí, ¿nos puedes explicar un poco sobre lo que está pasando aquí?
Sí, bueno, como tú acabas de mencionar, aquí estamos en la huelga de Waterford. Esta huelga lleva una duración de 4 meses ya. La gente que tenemos acá son gente que son healthcare aides, LPNs, gente que trabaja en la parte en support staff, como hay secretaria, hay gente que trabaja en la cocina, housekeeping y todo eso.
¿Y cómo se produjo esto que están en huelga en este momento?
Bueno, básicamente esta gente está peleando por su primer contrato. ¿Ya? Hay gente que lleva trabajando acá casi 20 años y sin contrato laboral ni nada, solamente con las reglas laborales del empleador. Y hace unos años atrás AUPE vino a ser su sindicato que los representa para negociar su primer negociación colectiva. Y bueno, pasaron todos los rounds de negociaciones, al final no se llegó a ningún acuerdo y la última opción que hubo fue salir a huelga.
Entonces, es decir que los dueños del Waterford son privados, ¿verdad?
Sí, este lugar tiene un solo dueño, es una persona que es de aquí de Canadá, es de BC y al igual que tiene otros nursing homes en Canadá y en Estados Unidos también.
Para aquellos que están pensando, ¿y qué de la gente que realmente vive aquí? ¿Cómo esta huelga está afectando a ellos? ¿Qué piensas o qué puedes comentar sobre eso?
Bueno, siempre que sucede una huelga en una casa de retiro como esta, los principales afectados son los residentes, la gente, los seniors que viven acá. En este caso hemos sabido de gente adentro que no reciben su medicación a tiempo. Todo servicio que se le entrega antes ha sido totalmente cambiado por el motivo de que la gente está aquí afuera. Al mismo tiempo es vergonzoso para el dueño de este lugar de que no quiera hacer nada al respecto. No quiere hacer nada al respecto de esto y que no quiera tener a sus trabajadores trabajando adentro y no estando aquí afuera.
Mejorando las condiciones para los seniors mismos. Los
Exacto,
ancianos.
porque el empleador debería considerar de que si es que sus trabajadores también, eso le da la oportunidad a él de traer gente calificada para trabajar en estos lugares. Y gente calificada y certificada puede proveer un buen cuidado a los residentes que tenemos acá.
Cuéntanos un poco sobre tu historia personal, Jaime. ¿Cómo es que llegas aquí a estar aquí en Edmonton?
Bueno, yo originalmente soy de Chile. Estoy aquí en Canadá por 20 años ya. Y el motivo que estoy acá es porque he estado bien envuelto con AUPE, lo que es The Alberta Union of Provincial Employees. Soy miembro como por 6 años ya y he estado los últimos 4 años he estado bastante envuelto en las causas y en las campañas que el sindicato ha tenido. Y bueno, por el último año he estado trabajando en las huelgas que hemos tenido y básicamente todas han sido relacionadas, igual que esta, relacionadas a la salud y a la privatización que está haciendo este gobierno acá.
Muy clave esa palabra que dijiste, privatización, ¿no?
Sí.
Explícanos un poco de tu punto de vista sobre lo que está pasando con nuestro sistema de salud aquí a través de todo Canadá, ¿verdad?
Sí. Bueno, el gobierno conservador que tenemos aquí en Alberta hace unos años atrás decidió privatizar lentamente la salud y uno de los sectores que se vio mayormente afectado fue los servicios que se le entregaban a los seniors, a los seniors acá. Entonces, todos los servicios públicos, todos los nursing home públicos que existían aquí en la provincia han sido cerrados. Lentamente, empezando por ciudades chicas hasta las más grandes. Y todos esos nursing homes han pasado a manos privadas. Ahora, los nursing homes, ya la mayoría de los nursing homes aquí en Alberta ya no son dirigidos por la provincia, por el gobierno provincial, sino que son dirigidos por manos privadas.
Y me parece que también es que ellos reciben fondos públicos.
Exacto.
Para esto, ¿no?
Sí.
¿Nos puedes explicar un poco sobre eso?
Sí, bueno, como dije, una vez que pasa a manos privadas, ellos todavía reciben una subvención del gobierno, ¿ya? Entonces, más que nada, esta subvención es para poder atraer a personal calificado a trabajar estos lugares. Lo que sucede en estos casos es que los dueños de estos lugares, esa subvención monetaria que le entrega el gobierno, ellos guardan eso para ellos, en vez de distribuirlo de la manera que tienen que ser distribuidos. Exacto. Entonces es una ganancia extra que ellos reciben. Eso es el pocketing que nosotros le llamamos, ¿entiendes? Entonces al empleador se le paga para que le pague más a su empleado, pero lo que pasa en estos casos es que ellos se dejan ese dinero, se lo dejan para ellos, y los empleados siguen con las condiciones que no son justas para ellos. Ya.
Jaime, explícanos un poco de dónde nace este deseo de pararte aquí o trabajar con esta gente por sus derechos humanos. ¿De dónde nace eso?
Mira, como te decía, yo originalmente vengo de Chile. Puedo decir que mi mayor influencia ha sido mi madre. Ella siempre me inculcó que es bueno pelear por los valores sociales, es bueno pelear por causas sociales. Considero que el trabajo público es importante y mi profesión, en realidad, yo soy un nurse aide, ¿ya? Pero como por ser miembro del sindicato, ahí me di cuenta que existía una organización que pelea por esos derechos, por los derechos de los trabajadores. Entonces, creo que ahí encontré una oportunidad para mí, para desenvolverme y poder ayudar de alguna manera, poner mi grano de arena en estas causas. Y así es como me encontré más envuelto con las campañas del sindicato, y así es como he estado trabajando últimamente. Pero como tú dices, como me preguntas, ha sido mi madre quien me ha inculcado todos esos valores de pelear por los derechos de la gente. Si tú puedes ayudar a alguien, ayúdalo, y todo lo que sea público y todo lo que sea social, todos esos derechos hay que defenderlos. Y creo que eso es importante.
Un último mensaje a aquellos televidentes que nos están viendo en este momento, que tal vez son parte de un sindicato, o como últimas palabras para ellos, para que se unen a la campaña aquí.
Sí, bueno, lo que les quisiera decir a la comunidad latina de Edmonton es que los sindicatos, en este caso AUPE, nos pelea por los derechos de todos los trabajadores de aquí de la provincia. Te agradezco a ti por invitarme a tu programa, porque es una manera de también hacerles saber a nuestra comunidad de que hay organizaciones, hay grupos que están dispuestos a pelear por sus derechos laborales. Y es importante verse envuelto en estas causas sociales, porque uno nunca sabe cuándo le va a pasar a uno, ¿right? Así que los invito a todos que vengan aquí, vengan a apoyarnos. Estamos aquí todos los días. O cualquier otra causa, cualquier ayuda siempre sirve para estas cosas. Sí.
Bueno, miembros de nuestra comunidad, aquí estamos en el Waterford, la 9395 172 Street. Vengan a apoyar aquí a los trabajadores de AUPE en el Waterford que necesitan su ayuda. Por favor, solidaridad. Bueno, muchísimas gracias.
Gracias, Rodrigo, muchas gracias.
Not stop. Keep coming, keep starting, we'll be here.
I came to Canada I want to change my life, see something different, something new, something different kind of people, how their life, how they speaking. I must understand them. I want to show my daughter's future something different, make her happy.
Hi, my name's Leanne Artemenko. I'm from Zimmerman, Minnesota. I came here 3 years ago with my family. I started working at the Waterford about a year ago, and I liked the staff and all the employees in there. But it was hard because there was hardly any staff there. We'd always be short, and it was, of course, that's not very good for you.
My name is Paulina, and I come from Ghana in the west coast of Africa. I've been in Canada for 6 years, and I came to Canada to join my husband, who had been here for some years before. And yeah, coming here, I was very happy, first of all because I was joining my husband, and also coming to know Canada was something that I was very happy about. In 2009, I came to Edmonton, and I applied for jobs, and the Waterford of Summerlea was the first place that called me, and coming here to work, I found it I was very happy to come and work here. And also my first time of working with seniors, which was an honor to me to work with seniors, because I respect seniors a lot. That's how we were brought up in my country, or especially in Africa, to respect seniors. So it was an honor for me to work with seniors. And for 3 years everything was fine, but we still had some problems that we thought we needed to address. But here it was hard to talk to anybody about your problems, or the manager especially about your problems. Like, I mean, they didn't see them as a problem or a grievance, anything that they needed to address.
Que la supervisora, que la manager, no les importaba que estábamos trabajando short of the staff. Pero eso no fue un gran problema. Nosotros siempre tratábamos de hacer el trabajo, ¿no? Y después de todo eso vimos de que ellos solo estaban dando trabajo y no estaban dándonos siquiera un vaso de agua, aunque podríamos decir querías tener un break. Si no te apurabas, no tomas el break. Solamente teníamos un break y el lunch y la hora de almorzar, pero estábamos siempre pendientes que nos llamaban a la hora de trabajo, que algo pasaba, tenías que hacer algo, porque el residente estaba tal vez en emergencia. Eso no lo toma en cuenta los dueños de este gran negocio, ¿no?
So my break is 30 minutes. I didn't know it. Must be 45 minutes, 15 more in the morning. Afternoon, you must be taking 30 minutes. I didn't know it. Nobody tell me. I just keep going only 30 minutes. And when I came to the outside to strike, the people tell me, explain to me, I have 45 minutes break. Even though I worked 8 months inside, they didn't tell me. Nobody tell me. Nobody explained to me.
It was it's a little too much responsibility for just one person. It was kind of, you're like vulnerable because everyone's on to you. Everything's being pushed onto you, and you're better off being you're injured in there, and it's, you know, and these injuries last a lifetime. It's not like they last just one day. And I remember having to come in here when I was really sick. I was vomiting. I had no voice. It was barely a whisper.
Yeah, currently we have I think 5 days in a year for sick leave. And working with seniors, we thought that 5 days wasn't enough for sick leave. So if you were sick for like a week and exhaust our 5 days, and that was it. If you were still sick, you were either supposed to still come to work or you know, take a leave without pay. and that wasn't good for us. And if we were forced to come to work sick, that wasn't also good for the people we were working for, the seniors. We could get them infected with cold, flu, anything, which they are older people and don't need to be exposed to sicknesses and stuff. So also there are many other working conditions that we thought could have been improved, you know. Yeah, so all of that was not being addressed. That is why we have come out here to demonstrate our grievances that they have refused to address, even since we started the union and tried to actually collectively address this issue, but they have failed to address it.
When I first came here, it was already in the works. People were already bargaining, and at first I was like, I just came to work, I need money, I need to pay off my loan. How am I supposed to be on strike? But as it progressed, I saw that everything was being unfair, how people were being mistreated, how people worked here for so long and they just tried firing them off. And so as I went to a couple meetings, and I decided that I was just gonna support my co-workers.
We were happy to have the union, and going into our first collective agreement or bargaining for our first collective agreement has still not been successful, and that is why we are out here on strike. We did everything possible, but it didn't go the way we both wanted it. So we are out here on strike.
And I'm working in the kitchen. I'm a cook. So now we are everybody, our workers, on a strike almost 4 months. It's unfair, it's terrible, it's very stressful. I just want to say people, and even the first of all, channel management, the big boss, Eugene, please listen, watch, and then be fairly. We are very different kind of people, different culture. We want to just understand each other, stick together. Don't make pain, hurt each other, please. This is unfair, almost 4 months.
No sé, ellos piensan que es una broma que estamos aquí en el sol, cuando ya tenemos 4 meses de estar en la huelga. Entonces esto hemos pasado frío, debajo del agua, hemos estado aquí.
Coming to the strike line every day has not been easy, especially when we started in the winter time in April. It was very cold, and to be out here in the cold for 6 hours was very hard. But we had to do it because we thought it was worth it. It was worth fighting for our right. So, and then we've been here for about almost 4 months now, which has been hard. In the rain, in the sun, and the wind, everything, all the kind of weather that we have in Alberta, we've been exposed to it for the past 4 months. It has been very hard, but we thought it is worth going through this, because we deserve to be listened to. We deserve what we are asking for, and so we have decided to continue to be out here to fight for our right till we get a contract from our employer.
I just want to tell them they cannot help us, but they must understand it, and then sometimes come to the strike, support us, please. And we having like difficult situation. They must be understand. They don't get mad at us. For example, before we love seniors, 4 months ago, we stick together inside, we work together, we make fun, we joking. But after the 4 months, now this situation for me is so hard. We fighting each other. This is not good. This is the Canadian life. Why the millionaire people, they don't understand. Why they make money? Where's the money? They cannot keep their work, must be first. This is work, this is your second house, second family. You must be if you want to improve your business, you can keep your workers together. Listen to them, understand to them, be fairly, give contract what they want. Then you improve your business.
Que se sientan optimistas cuando están en un trabajo donde no hay beneficios, que hablen, que busquen una ayuda para que ellos sean, que no sean ignorados, porque eso es lo que yo siento, que aquí nos han ignorado a nosotros porque somos inmigrantes, no sé, solo que trabajes y punto. Entonces, pues que algo otra gente, ¿no? Que no se dejen, que tomen ventajas, porque así sentimos nosotros, que aquí estos tomaron ventajas en nosotros, en los trabajadores. Estamos tan felices haciendo, y nos sentíamos que nos estábamos agotando, y por poco dinero. Bueno, pero gracias a Dios teníamos trabajo, ¿no? Pero ahora, como estamos así, no quisiera que otra gente también vaya a quedarse sin trabajo, porque aquí no dieron layoff. Entonces, ¿qué ha pasado? Estamos ahora esperando una solución. Y si algo otra gente, pues, que va a pasar o que ha pasado por la misma situación, pues esto no es... uno tiene que serse muy optimista, seguir adelante y salir adelante, eso es lo que estamos buscando.
I would want to tell the viewers that what we are out here asking for is not anything too much, or it's not above, we know that it's not above what our employer can offer us. And the whole thing, we don't understand why they don't want to offer us this little, improvement that we are asking for, which would improve the institution, this facility that we are working in, not just to improve our lives, but to improve the condition of the seniors and the condition of the facility and everything. So we also think that what we are asking for could go a long way to improve our lives, and that will help our children's life and on to affect the whole of Alberta. If everybody can get their life improved, it would affect the whole family and the whole community and the whole city and the province will be better for everybody. So this fight that we are fighting here, we know that it's not just for us, and it is going to be for everybody. And also we have learned a lot being on the strike line from other union members who have come to join and support us. We have learned a lot from them. I have learned a lot from them, because this is my first time of joining the union. I didn't know anything, I didn't have any experience about the union. Being on the strike line has actually helped a lot for me to learn how they told us the conditions in which they were also in at their workplaces, and joining the union and fighting for their right, and what they have now and the improvement that they've had in their lives and in their families' life has actually encouraged me to continue to fight and not to give up, because I know that in the end we are going to be victorious, and that will help everybody else in this province.
This is how we build every day. Bringing dreams and poems with you, songs and hopes with you. This is how we build every day. I need every one of you. These dreams we continue. When that day, that day comes, we gonna celebrate. We gonna celebrate. Until then, this is how we build every day. Bringing dreams and poems with you, songs and hopes with you. This is how we build every day. I need every one of you. These dreams we continue. When that day comes, we gonna celebrate. We gonna celebrate. Until then, celebrate.
Ballet Mexico Lindo.
Estimados amigos y amigas de la comunidad latinoamericana, aquí estamos con Tío Sánchez de la Panaderia Latina celebrando los 20 años de servicio a la comunidad. Como pueden escuchar, tenemos música, hay baile, de todo. Aquí estamos celebrando 20 años de servicio a la comunidad con varios de la comunidad, como ustedes pueden ver. Y bueno, le tenemos algunos anuncios aquí, especialmente para ustedes. La organización Memoria Viva, la Sociedad Memoria Viva de Edmonton, les quiere invitar a la obra de teatro que están produciendo, que se va a presentar el 15 de septiembre en el Arts Barns. Bueno, ahí vamos a poner más información sobre dónde y cuándo y todo eso, pero la obra de teatro se llama Voy Soñando, Voy Caminando. escrito por Daniel Villalobos y Alejandra Díaz. Alejandra Díaz también está dirigiendo el proyecto. Y bueno, los esperamos el día 15 de septiembre para la obra de teatro producido por Memoria Viva. Lo otro es que también se va a conmemorar los 40 años del golpe militar en Chile, que ocurrió, como ustedes saben, el 11 de septiembre de 1973. Y bueno, los esperamos en el museo, el Teatro del Museo, el día 7 de septiembre, que es un día sábado. El evento va a empezar a las 5 de la tarde, va a durar hasta como las 8:30 por ahí. Los invitamos el día 7 de septiembre al museo, al Teatro del Museo Provincial, para la conmemoración de los 40 años del golpe militar y nuestra pérdida del presidente Salvador Allende. Bueno, aquí estamos en su programa comunitario Nosotros.
Good evening. Well, I think it's always a pleasure to be with so many people from different countries of Latin America, though they are living outside of their countries. So for someone coming from Cuba, it's very nice to be with so many people from Latin America. I will try to do my best in my presentation in English, so please forgive me if I made any mistake. So I would like to talk, I'm coming from the Cuban Friendship Institute in Solidarity with Cuba. It's like a non-governmental organization that is just placed at the Havana City, and it was founded in 1962, just 1 year after the triumph of a revolution. At that time, we only have diplomatic relations with Mexico and with Canada. But many friends from all over the world wanted to have a relationship with that emerging revolution, with that new social project. So we need to have an institution to organize that relationship with friends from all over the world. And that's the reason an institute is divided in different geographical areas. And I work at the North American division. And it's good to know that we are responsible to work with those groups offering the solidarity to our country, but also in some way we offer solidarity to different causes, such as Palestine, the case of Haiti, Venezuela, and we give attention to foreigner students that are studying in Cuba. I have to tell you that more than 90,000 students, especially from Latin America, the Caribbean and Africa, have been studying in Cuba different courses for free. And now we have the responsibility also in an institution to give attention to these students. And now I'm in Canada because I have been participating at the Canadian Network on Cuba 6th Biennial Convention that took place during 3 days, the last 3 days in Toronto. And the Cuban Edmonton Solidarity Committee has invited me to come to talk a little about what we are doing now in Cuba, how we are beating socialism, and what are the new changes that we are doing in Cuba. So I'm not a socialist analyst, so I'm trying to express, or I will express, what we are doing since my point of view, and taking into consideration all the different changes and all the policy our government is right now carrying out. So, and the first thing that I would like to highlight here is that we are still building our socialism, and we are updating the socialism in Cuba with new changes, but we are never give up our social conquest, and all what we are doing is based on socialist principles. So that's the reason. Let me begin with this small presentation, and each page of the presentation I will explain more. And there are some distortion and disinformation, such as that the socialism has failed in Cuba, which is not true, that the Cuban reforms are neoliberal measure, and the reforms equate to shock therapy, that reforms are an attack on the Cuban people, especially on workers, and that Cuba is returning to capitalism. And I would like to tell you why this is completely, this is not true. So, what are main economic problems and challenge? Because we have also challenge in Cuba. We have some figures regarding health and education that are, we could compare them as the one of the developed country. But Cuba, it's an agricultural country. We are a country developing, you are underdeveloped country, and sometimes they try to compare Cuba to developed country, and that's impossible. So we are a tiny island with a lot of economic challenge and shortages and problems that we still have to overcome and to face. The first one is the U.S. economic blockade imposed in 1962 by the U.S. that has provoked economic damage in excess of 100 billion. So it's very difficult for Cuba to work with this U.S. blockade. And each year at the United Nations Assembly, and last year was 188 countries were against this U.S. blockade, except United States and Israel. So every year, the world is asking the United States to lift that economic blockade. So 70% of the Cubans have been living under the blockade, including me. So we are continue living and we are continue building our social ploy with or without blockade. But I have to tell you that it's very difficult. Whenever Cuba goes abroad to buy or to do any financial transaction, so it's used to do it in US dollar. But we have always the persecution of the United States because all the rest of the world, though they say the Europe Union is growing out, but all the country has their reserves in dollars. So we need to do that, but it's very difficult. So last year, an European bank received a very high fine because of its trading of a financial transaction with Cuba. So all ships that go or arrive in a Cuban port or in any Cuban port, so they are not allowed to go to US. We consume. I have to tell you that when we want to buy any like a last generation antibiotic, something for our children who are suffering from cancer, we cannot buy them, of course not in the United States, but not even in Europe or in Malaysia, if that company belongs to US. So that it's very, very difficult for us. We cannot buy like a musical instrument or raw materials. And for example, internet in Cuba is very slow. So now we have an agreement with Venezuela. We have an optic fiber cable, but this will multiply the capacity of internet in Cuba. And Cuba is surrounded by a lot of US optic fiber cables, but we are not allowed to switch any of those optic fiber cable. So all our communication is through satellite, which is extremely expensive. And then this agreement with Venezuela, this optic fiber cable, will multiply our capacity, but not the access to the internet. Because who is the owner of the internet in the world? So we don't have a Skype net in Cuba because US says that no, not for Cuba. And even in their bylaw of some of the software, so one of the things that they have is say, no, this cannot be solved to Cuba. And 90% of the softwares in this world are produced in the United States. So that is a situation that is very, very difficult for Cuba. It's a very hostile policy that lasted more than 50 years, and it's time to lift the blockade. Even for the citizens, the only country that they are not allowed to travel is Cuba. They could go to North Korea, they could go to other countries that they were coming, or they are communist countries, but they are not allowed to Cuba. And they have to ask for a permission for going to Cuba. So I think, and this travel ban, though there are many people even in the US that are asking to leave the travel ban, so they don't permit them to go, only with permission. And the economic crisis, of course, after the collapse of a socialist camp, had a great influence on Cuban economy. Cuba, after the collapse of a socialist camp, lost 80% of its whole total trading. It was very difficult. I not even like to remember those years, 1990 or 1993. For me, 1993 was the worst one. Each Cuban that is still living in the island, they are very marked by this situation. And now we're also facing an ideological challenge with our young people, because the majority of the young people in Cuba now who are aged between 19, 22 years old, they were born after the collapse of a socialist scam. So the only thing that they have known is a country with a lot of shortages, blackouts. Now we are in a better condition, but it's difficult. And some of them, like in Nicaragua or in Honduras or in other countries, they want to travel to developed countries for economic reasons. But this situation is used on mass media with political reasons. Also, the impact and devastation of 16 hurricanes between 1998 and 2008. In 2008, we have 3 very, very strong hurricanes in Cuba, and they have caused an estimated damages of more than $20 million. Sometimes that 2008 was very, very difficult in Cuba, especially in the western provinces like Pinar del Rio or at the Isle of Youth. And of course, the current world economic crisis. So it's difficult for us. For example, the prices of the food has increased so much, and due to the blockade, we have to buy rice in China. So we have excellent relations with China and Vietnam, but we have to waste a lot of money in that transportation, trying to buy rice in those countries instead of buy them, such as like at the south of Florida. What are the main objectives then that we want to do in Cuba? So we need to produce more in Cuba because we have a lot of land that without any cultivation. So we need to reduce importation and to try to have more exportation and to try to have food self-sovereignty because we could produce more. And that's one of the main measures we are taking right now is to encourage the production of food in our people and to increase productivity, to have a greater efficiency in allocation and use of resources, to encourage the increment of food production, as I told you, to eliminate corruption, because we also have corruption in Cuba, so we can tell you lies. So due to that shortages, there are some corruption in Cuba, and one of the measures we are taking is just to face that corruption, because we cannot develop a socialism, a prosperous socialism, that's one of our main tasks right now, with corruption. And a correction of imbalance between services and goods, and the end of irrational and counterproductive subsidies, and elimination of a double currency. You still have in Cuba the national money and something similar to dollar that we needed to have this measure after the collapse of a socialist scam. But it's time to eliminate this double currency because it's also like Cubans, they don't like that because we receive our money in national money. So it's time to do that. But for doing or for taking or achieving this measure, we need to have more production. And to reduce social disbalance because of a special period that we had and to raise salary by 10% by 2015. Return value to work and reverse the inverted pyramid. And this is because there was a moment in Cuba because of a crisis that maybe a gardener working in an embassy had a higher wage than a doctor working in an intensive therapy unit. So that's not fair, and we are working to change that situation. To reduce bureaucracy, because we also have bureaucracy, and make administration more effective. And we shift workers from the unproductive spheres to the productive spheres. We had more than 60% of our workers under the state umbrella. And there are other sectors where we could produce more without having workers. So we need to have workers there. People working in that spheres where we need the production. In places where they were there without contributing to the production of the society. They increase the strategic role of workers in Cuban society by opening a whole range of economic activities, while we self-employees. So we have a small business in Cuba, and it's a new measure, and for this reason, at the end of the last year, we have more than 400,000 self-employees working as in cafeterias that they themselves open, small restaurants, and bread and breakfast inns and things like that. And these have been also a new way to offer employment, or because some of them, the one that runs this small business, they have the possibility to have like 6 or more workers with them. By 2017, 40% or 45% of the GDP will be non-state. At this moment, it's 5%. The estimated workforce of 5.2 million, and estimate 5 million to 70% in the state sectors, as I told you before. And the first step was transfer 500,000 to the non-state sector. And we have achieved, and there is a great propaganda about this. They are saying that 500,000 workers are without any job in Cuba, which is not true. They have transferred to other posts where they could produce and give their contribution to the society. A new range of safe employment economic activities have opened. 107 different categories of employment, such as food vendors, winemakers, stonemasons. That's the one that I mentioned you before, have been open. 83 categories allowed to hire additional employees who do not necessarily have to be family members or members of the same household as it was before. Paladares are the small restaurants in Cuba. They are very well known, and they are allowed to increase set allotment from 12 to 20. The state is also transforming state mini enterprises firm into cooperative, like beauty salons and barber shops. And as I told you, at the end of 2012, more than 400,000 involved in self-employment. The leasing of land to improve food production. And this is one of the most important measures we have taken in Cuba. Cuba imports 70% of its food, and 50% of the state agricultural land is idle. So that's the reason we need to produce more to reduce importations. 200,000 people have accepted land becoming small farmers. And we have the situation in Cuba that as the level of education is so high, and education is free even at the university, so many young people, they didn't want to work at the countryside, not as farmers, and many want to go to study at the university. So it's important to study at the university, but I will also need to have technicians, masons, and also farmers. So one of the nations of the Cuba's reorganization is not retrenchment as under capitalism. Workers are not laid off and left to fend for themselves. And this is one of the main principles. Workers are often allowed food ration and things as you could see here. So we can do all the different, as much as economic changes in Cuba, but we are still, and we will maintain the free health and education in Cuba for having the same standards as before. And something that has been very important during this process is the workers' participation in decision-making. So all these measures have been discussed in every work center in Cuba. So reorganization discussed and debated by trade union, mass organizations, even in newspaper, radio, television, by the immense majority of Cubans. And the debate initiated in July 2007 at the 6th Congress of the Communist Party, and we decided to establish 291 draft guidelines that were proposed, and each of them was discussed by the workers and with our population in the communities. So, and here you have some figures about the debates from December 2010 and February 2011. So this debate involved 8.9 million people in Cuba. And as a result of this mass national discussion and debate across the island, at the Cuban National, Provincial, and Municipal Assembly, more than the two-thirds of that original 291 were modified. And eventually we have 311 guidelines that have emerged. And that's the reason we say that we are updating the socialist model. Because if we increase productivity and efficiency, it will lead to a stronger economy, and the value of our work enhanced. And the reactivation of production is essential to the struggle to rein social inequality and a state of inflation in Cuba. And something that is new also, a policy of taxes. Cuba do not pay taxes. So this is new for Cubans, but if you are running a restaurant or if you are running a cafeteria, you have also to pay a tax to the government, because our population is getting, another factor is that our population is getting old. So Cuban women only have one child. That's a problem in Cuba. And for 2025, more than 25% of our population will be over the 65 years old. Life expectancy in Cuba is 78 for men and 80 for women. So it means that we need that, the payment of taxes for continue developing the social security, especially for those people that, for adults, the senior people that we have very soon in Cuba. So the strategy and decisive means of production will remain in the hands of the states. Mining, sugar, biotechnology, electronic industry, the petroleum, the tourism, and the infrastructure. So we are not going to permit the concentration of wealth. And this is one of the other measures that we are taking in Cuba. And state will retain control of external trade and foreign investment in the island. Education, health, social security, and pension will remain under the state control. And no concentration of property and capital, as I told you before, will be permitted. And the means of production will continue as constitutionally stipulated social property. National independence and social justice preserved and strengthened. And this is like a panorama of what we are doing in Cuba. Recently, we had a new elections on our National Assembly, and I have to tell you that more than the 50% of the members of the parliament are new, and 48% of them are women. So we are one of the best, the first parliaments in Cuba with high numbers of women. So we are not still satisfied. We need to have more women in the parliament, but we are working hard, very hard on this. And each of these new measures have been discussed in our parliament and have been approved in the Cuban parliament.
How we build every day, bringing dreams and poems with you, songs and hopes with you.